Namaste, everybody. Mr. Brown here. I'm teaching you from the comfort of my own home in these strange times, but I thought it might be quite useful for me to explain some bits on Romeo and Juliet for you. So each of these little sessions, I'll cover a very short area of Romeo and Juliet, so a specific quote or a specific moment. We'll go through that, and then there'll be a task at the end for you to complete. So hopefully you should be able to just hit play and hear me and see the screen move as it does. So it's like a little lesson from afar. So I thought I'd start off. We're going to be looking at Act 3, Scene 1. So this is the big scene where lots happens. It's where the death occurs. Gets very exciting by this point, all right? But what we're going to start off by doing is focusing on the character of Benvolio, the peacekeeper. And sort of the aim of this is to see how Benvolio is presented by Shakespeare at the start of this scene, in particular, as this man of peace who doesn't want to fight or tries to stop the fighting. And as you can see, we've got some key terminology which we will cover in this session: pathetic fallacy, even foreshadowing, iambic pentameter, and we're going to look at feminine endings on an iambic pentameter, which is probably something you haven't done, but that's for our higher end students who are hoping to get level 8s and 9s. So there's a bit of something for everyone. Right, so if we just remind ourselves then of Benvolio as a character. So Benvolio is introduced to us quite early on, isn't he? He is in the big scene at the start with "Do you but your thumb at us, sir?" He's one that tries to stop that fighting, all right? So he tries to make peace between the two houses. So a couple of quotes that we've got, if you look down at the bottom of this black section here, when the fighting occurs in the streets, it's actually Benvolio who tries to prevent that. It says, "Part fools, put up your swords." And he will put up your swords. It actually means put your sword down, stop fighting, basically. And we've got this word fools, which I think is quite important, because if you zoom in on that word, it sort of emphasises to us that he thinks everybody's foolish for fighting, that they're idiots for fighting, and that they perhaps shouldn't be doing so. So it also sets out that not only is he trying to stop the fighting, but actually Benvolio is quite a sensible, level-headed character and sees those breaking the law or otherwise as fools. And I put here, it indicates that he does not support this ancient grudge that is going on. He seems very against it at times within the play, all right? And later on, he also says when Tybalt comes out in that same sequence, he tries to fight with Benvolio. He says, "I do but keep the peace. Put up thy sword, or manage it to part these men with me." Okay, so he's saying to Tybalt, who obviously is the complete contrast of Benvolio. Benvolio acts as our peacekeeper, Tybalt acts as our antagonist, the one who always wants to fight, who always wants to start that fight. And Benvolio is practically saying to him, "Come on, keep the peace with me. Let's not do this now. Let's make this all lovely again," okay? That's why he's saying, put up your sword, or if you won't put it away, use your sword to help move these men on to stop them fighting. So that's how Shakespeare introduces the character of Benvolio to us, okay? Very peaceful, tries to do the right thing at this point, okay? And we just need to remind ourselves of that before we look right at the start of Act 3, Scene 1, which we're going to do now. So, right at the start, Benvolio starts his scene. She says it's in Verona, a public place, and enter Mercutio, his page, Benvolio, and Ben. And Benvolio starts the scene by saying, "I pray thee, good Mercutio, let's retire. The day is hot, the capels are abroad, and if we meet, we shall not escape a brawl. For now, these hot days is the mad blood stirring." Okay, and you can see that I put that all on the screen here for you, all right? So, we've got quite a lot here, okay? And we're going to start off, first of all, this bit here, the capels are abroad. That means the Capulets are about, out and about, okay? So if the Capulets are out and about, ooh, what have I done there? Accidental movage. So the capels are abroad, they're out and about, and they're saying that if they run into them, we will not escape a brawl. So this idea that if they meet them today, they will definitely have a fight, okay? And what we've got here is a key example of foreshadowing, okay? Foreshadowing is when we as an audience are warned of something that is going to happen later on within the play. And in this instance, we're told we're not going to escape a brawl. So naturally what happens later in the scene, there is a big brawl and they all fight. So it's that warning, that indication, all right? And that's what Benvolio is telling us as the audience. He's warning us of this, that it's going to happen. So what we've also got then is we've got the use of pathetic fallacy within this quote, because obviously, not Mercutio, Benvolio says the day is hot, and he also refers to it twice because he says hot days later on. Now, what this is doing is warning everyone that the weather is very, very stuffy, very, very hot. And when it gets very hot, uncomfortably so, people get agitated and irritated. And he's saying when people are agitated and irritated, that's when they like to fight and they get moody. Okay, so the mood is on, people are ready to fight because of heat, and that means if they do come across the Capulets, it's gonna be carnage, basically. Okay, that's what that heat is indicating. So that's what he's saying about the prophetic fallacy then. So it acts as this intimation for us that the day is warm, it's too hot, therefore tempers are high. What we've also got that I think is quite interesting, he says, for now, these hot days is the mad blood stirring. So the idea of going mad is this idea that they're angry, that they're ready to fight. But the use of the word blood, the blood stirring within the bodies, okay? Now, blood is a key aspect of Romeo and Juliet. Obviously, we've got this ancient grudge, which is family ties. You're tied by blood to the side of the argument that you're on. So if you're Capulet, by blood, you're a Capulet. So therefore, you oppose the Montagues. If you've got the blood of a Montague, you oppose the Capulets. But we've also got this idea of that your blood sometimes, well, your hot blood draws you to who you love. Okay, so that idea of Romeo and Juliet being drawn to each other. But also we have blood shed, and lots of people die as a result of this. And in this scene, we see a lot of blood being shed. So that word blood is just sort of indicating what is to come, and also perhaps acts as a bit of foreshadowing. So what we've got here then is Benvolio desperately warning Mercutio and whoever else is around that because the day's so warm, because it's unpleasant and everybody's sort of in bad moods, it's not going to be a good day for them. If they're going to meet them, they're going to fight. So therefore, it's probably best they be careful. And that's why we're saying, let's retire, let's go away, let's go home, let's go indoors to prevent a fight from happening, because it will definitely happen if that's the case. So that sort of summarises that quote there. If you've got any questions, feel free to email me or one of the other teachers, and I'm sure we'll be able to answer. But now we're just going to look at one last little thing, which is going to really push the high-end students. So we all should know, hopefully, iambic pentameter. This is the beat in which Shakespeare writes, okay? So he writes in verse, and this is an example of verse because we have got 10 beats per line, okay? So it's more blank verse because obviously it doesn't rhyme. So what you've got is, I see here, so I pray thee, good Mercutio, let's retire. If we take this line, we can see this has got the 10 beats per line. Okay, so we've got I pray, which is your first double beat. So I pray thee, good Mercutio. Sorry, Chio's one. Let's retire. Okay, so it should be 10 beats. So what you get is I pray thee, good Mercutio, let's retire. And that's 10 beats in the line, 10 syllables. You have to do it as Mercutio. Okay, so it's 3 syllables for Mercutio. Then the day is hot, capitals are abroad. The day is hot, 4 syllables. The capitals are, that's another 4 syllables. Abroad, the other 2, which gives you 10. So the day is hot, the capitals are abroad, and if we meet, we shall not escape abroad. So each of those 3 lines has got 10 beats per it, 10 syllables, okay? Which is how we get that iambic pentameter. Now, this last line is where it gets interesting because Benvolio breaks the iambic pentameter. If this doesn't make sense, don't worry. Like I said, this is for the level 8s and level 9 students, possibly level 7s. So, in this line, we've got for now, these hot days is the mad blood stirring. Okay, so actually, there is 1 syllable too many in this line. Okay, it's actually an 11 beat line. That means what we call that is a feminine ending. Okay, so if it ever has 11 beats instead of 10 in the iambic pentameter, it's a feminine ending. And it's usually done to disrupt the beat of the rhythm or the flow of what someone's saying. Okay, so why might he be doing that? That's the question. Well, the idea is it's to show, to make it sit. Sorry, I was just thinking to myself there. I'm just checking if we shall not meet. If we meet, we shall. If we meet, we shall not escape a brawl. Yeah. So this idea of the mad blood stirring. I apologise, I went off on one there. So the feminine ending is on this finale hot days stirring. It's the idea to show that it's going to cause disruption, that things aren't right, that things are out of place. And it sort of acts as a bit of a warning, that idea that stirring stands out as a line in comparison to the rest. The word sticks out a little bit more because the stress will be on that, okay? So it's the idea that things are about to be stirred up, things are about to happen. So you can use feminine endings to stress key extra words within a line that normally wouldn't, and it also just makes it stand out rhythmically so it doesn't flow quite as well and shows a disruption to whatever's going on. So that's a little bit on feminine endings. You can look that up if you don't understand the way I said it, because I did sort of drift off into my own world partially there. So what I'd now like to do, that's a little talk through of that first quote there. I've got 3 tasks for you there. So you pick your core, your challenge, super challenge, whichever one suits you. But thinking about how Benvolio is shown as a peacekeeper, how is he showing some bad's going to happen? So think about talking about foreshadowing, okay, and why has Shakespeare started the scene this way? What's he telling us? What's he warning us about? And the super challenge, I want to really hone in on the techniques that Shakespeare uses to establish mood and atmosphere in the opening of the scene. But then there's that extra challenge at the bottom for the higher grades about that iambic pentameter, about the feminine ending, if you can get that down. Thank you very much for listening. I'm sure I'll do more of these very shortly. Hope they're of use. Any comments or anything that will be helpful, let me know. Thank you very much.